entertainment, 100% electricity, 100%
Pipebomb Radio with your host, Felix Olmedo.
Be the man! You gotta beat the man!
Austin James.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so.
And Nate Milton.
Can you dig it, sucker?
Good evening. Welcome, everybody, to Pipebomb Radio tonight. Tonight we have a very special guest joining us. He is an independent wrestling star, but, you know, he's considered more of a wrestling legend on the independent circuit. He is Cueball Carmichael. And most recently he made an appearance at the Omega show with the Hardy Boys and with Hurricane Helms. And we'll talk to him about that and so much more. He's had a great career in the wrestling business, wrestling all around on the East Coast and sometimes even on the West Coast, wrestling for such companies as the Mid-Eastern Wrestling Federation, National Wrestling Alliance as well, Phoenix Championship Wrestling, just to name a few. And my partner in crime, Nate Milton, he'll kill me for forgetting his name, will be joining me here momentarily, and we will go ahead and place the call to Mr. Cueball Carmichael and kick it off. In the meantime, hopefully everybody enjoyed Monday Night Raw last night. As we prepare for 2 weeks away from now, we actually continue with the road to Payback. You know, I have to say, the build-up was pretty nice to Raw last night. The Raw, you know, the matches were great, and the setups were great. Definitely a lot of twists and turns throughout the night. Haven't had too much of issues with the Authority showing up too much. Kane, you know, he's been the one running things, but you know, the Big Red Monster has been around. He's been around, and he's definitely had his hand in the plate somewhere. So, with that, I believe Mr. Nate Milton is calling. Good timing, Nate. Is that you, Nate?
What is going on, Brother Felix?
Just sitting there jibber-jabbering about Monday Night Raw and giving people a little bit of an intro as to who Cueball Carmichael is at this point. And, yep. Cueball is waiting for our phone call, so we won't waste too much time. We'll get the show on the road here.
All right.
Give me just a second here. My goodness, if I ever get these phone lines down, it'll be a miracle, man. I've been dealing with the same old phone lines for 3.5 years, and it just seems to never get any easier because they always give me issues about something. But nonetheless, I will kick it off here, and I know he's waiting, so we won't waste too much of his time. We'll go ahead and get this show on the road, because he actually was just at I was just saying, he was at an Omega show with the Hardy Boys and Shane Helms and all them guys over the weekend, or I think it was the weekend. I've seen pictures posted about it and so forth. But we'll talk about that, and here we go. Let's see how we can...
Hello?
Hello, is this Cueball Carmichael?
It is.
Sir, this is Felix and Nate from Pipebomb Radio, sir. We thank you for taking time to join us. Hopefully you're feeling okay.
I'm hanging in there, man. That's all you can do.
That's true. That is true. But we'll go ahead and kick things off and talk about, you know, the most recent show that you were at. I was seeing pictures, and you were at an Omega show. How did that go for you? What went on, and did you have fun? I'm sure you did.
Yeah, the Omega shows are always fun. I mean, you know, there's some great things about them. And, you know, they draw a big crowd, which is always fun. It's always more fun to work in front of 1,000 than 100. But, you know, the other thing they do is the talent's unbelievable. I mean, on this show they had, you know, Matt Hardy, C.W. Anderson, Magnus from TNA, EC3, just some really good guys that were just really talented, and they continue to book a lot of guys. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was there. The last show they had Mick Foley at it. So they continue to bring in legends and honor those guys, but they also continue to bring in the best guys available on the independents, guys like John Schuyler and Anthony Henry, and guys that are just extremely talented. So it's always a lot of fun.
Nice. All right.
They're the kind of shows that I watch through the curtain. You know, I watch every match I can watch. I watch through the curtain.
Good
Absolutely, and you talk about watching matches. One of the things that I learned, following your career and doing a little bit of research is I'm out here in Newport News, Virginia, so I'm sure you're very familiar with that neck of the woods.
Oh, yeah.
So, this is, Flair country, mid-Atlantic country from back in the day. Who were some of the guys that you watched growing up that kind of got you into the sport of pro wrestling?
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny. I have a huge following there in the Tidewater area of Virginia, I call it, and I spent a good portion of my career down there and had a lot of success. But, I'm a little bit older. So when I grew up in upstate New York, so we didn't get any NWA or anything like that. My first exposure to that, besides magazines, which I read all the time, was when Georgia Championship Wrestling was broadcast in my hometown on TBS, starting in about 1980.
Okay.
But I watched the big guys for me that were really, I think I knew when I was 9 I wanted to be a wrestler. My mother was in the living room and she started screaming for my dad, and I ran in and there's wrestling on TV, which I had never seen, and Freddie Blassie's got a guy bleeding all over the place, and my mother yells at my dad, do something. My dad looks at her and goes, it's probably recorded. There's nothing I can really do about it. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe my conservative mother had that kind of reaction. I was freaked out. And I was instantly sold on the reaction you can get from people versus the actual sport of it. But, when I saw Superstar Billy Graham, that was a guy who I looked at and said, now that's cool. Even though he was a heel, that was a cool gimmick to me. Bob Backlund, not so much, but he was. And, of course, I was a big fan of Bruno Sammartino as a kid because he was a champion when I was a kid, and, guys like that. But I think I was more attracted to the colorful characters of the era.
Okay. And at that point, too, you actually got to work as a trainer and train a lot of the guys, but we'll get to that in just a second. As a character, as you got into professional wrestling, did you enjoy working more as a good guy or as a bad guy, or either way?
No, I always enjoyed working more as a bad guy. I was kind of cursed because when I was younger, I guess I had the babyface look, or I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to work a show. So for a long time when I was younger, I was a babyface and a good guy, and I didn't really like it. And once I finally got to be a heel, and I got some exposure and started getting booked as a heel, I very seldom was I ever booked as a face after that. The only time is if there was, a new promotion that brought me in that might want to try to get me over as a face, but I've always enjoyed being the bad guy.
Okay.
Now, again, doing some research on you, one of the interesting tidbits that I found, and I want to know if this is true or not, is that you used to be an insurance salesman.
Oh, that's 100% true. I was actually I was a stockbroker that worked inside of an insurance agency that also dealt with stocks and bonds and securities. And I had a Series 6, 6A, 7, and 7A license, and I used to deal, security, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, investments, things like that. Yes, sir, absolutely.
Oh, wow. So when you were doing that, was the plan always to be a wrestler and you were doing that part-time, or at that time were you fully invested, no pun intended, in that world?
No, it's funny. I didn't start wrestling. I didn't go to wrestling school until I was 22, and I'd already been in home improvement sales for a year at that point. I moved from upstate New York to Hawaii to go to Peter Maivia's school first in 1982, and I always kept a sales job, and as I got a little bit older, and there was that point maybe when I was in my early 30s where I could have made a move to wrestle full-time. I was making really good money at it, or stay in sales. And the thing with me is I saw guys who tried to make a living at wrestling that weren't signed, didn't have contracts, and I saw their lifestyle, and that was not in the least bit appealing to me. So, I've been blessed that most of my career I've made over six-figure income in sales. So wrestling was really just something I loved to do, but I never really needed to do it for the money. Even though there's a few years when I had a school and I was on the road a lot where I made a lot of money at it, I always kept either owned a business, a home improvement business, or I was a securities, stockbroker, or something in the background that always was a really good income for me. It had benefits. So I don't think I ever felt the need that I had to make money at wrestling, but I certainly wanted to, but it would have had to have been an extremely lucrative contract for me to give up my day job.
And you had the opportunity to work with wrestling legend himself, King Kong Bundy. something in some wrestling federation that's called King Kong Bundy's Devastation Wrestling Federation.
Yeah, true story. Sure. I had a wrestling school in Northern Virginia. I lived in Northern Virginia right outside of D.C. from 1987 to about 2002. And I had a wrestling school, and Jimmy Cicero was a trainer there for me. And I owned a promotion called the IPWA, and we trained guys like Christian York, Joey Matthews became Joey Mercury, who's been with the WWE for 11 years. And we trained a guy named Otto Schwanz who worked for a while as Bo Duff in the WWE, and a few other guys. And then I moved to New Jersey. I just really needed to change of pace. I went through a divorce, and I moved to New Jersey, only about an hour, 2.5 hours from D.C. And, of course, Bundy and I had been friends for years. We worked each other a ton in the 1990s. And he had just opened Devastation Wrestling Federation, and he asked me to come over and help him train some guys, and I went over and trained. And he had a pretty good federation. Ace Darling was his champion for a while, and I beat Ace Darling for the championship and had it for a while. And it was a good, solid promotion. Had a lot of talent. Tom Brandy was a regular there, and a few other really good young guys.
Well, you mentioned that training aspect and the experience of being a trainer and running the school. One of the things that we always get calls from, whether it's from listeners of the show or fans of the show, especially now when Tough Enough is kind of kicking back up again, is people saying they want to be wrestlers. As somebody that has trained people that have gone on to be very successful in the business, what are one or two things that you say that you must have in order to make it in this business?
Well, it's got to be your passion, because if it's not, if you aren't absolutely committed to it, unless you're from an outside sport and the WWE wants to throw six figures at you to go down to the Performance Center and crossover train to become a wrestler, you're not going to make it. You're not going to survive the training. I mean, certainly, in '82 I spent 10 months at Peter Maivia's camp. In 1988, I didn't feel like I knew enough about wrestling to be super successful, so I went and trained for 8 months with Lou Thez and Mark Fleming down in Norfolk. And, I tell people these days, and I'm in the process of opening up a training center here again in eastern North Carolina, I tell people, if I did today in training what they did to me 20, 25 years ago, they wouldn't put me in jail. They'd put me underneath the jail. So, It's hard. As hard as I like to make it on people, I start out and have them do a couple hundred Hindu squats, and I do a lot of calisthenics with them and work them out pretty hard. But what that does is separates the pretenders from the contenders. Contenders have passion, and no matter how physically difficult it is on them and how tough it is on them, that passion will push them to come back day after day after day. And the guys that really don't have it, the guys that want to be a wrestler so they can tell their girls and their friends that they're a wrestler and they're doing it for the wrong reasons, they weed themselves out.
That's a very good point. I mean, with so many people opening up wrestling schools around the country now, anybody can walk in, but you got to have that passion to do it and make it everything that's you're all about. And if it's not, then you shouldn't even be in there. But I got to ask you, in the years of experience that you've had, and not only as a wrestler, not only as a trainer, but from the promoter's standpoint, you've been a promoter as well. You've had pretty much all aspects in the wrestling business. What did you feel like you enjoyed doing the most? I mean, you might have enjoyed doing it all, but I mean, you have every aspect of experience, so you definitely could offer advice to a youngster coming in and saying, "Hey, Cueball, I need to pick your brain, man. I need to get in. I want to get in here and do this, but I want to do it kind of like how you did it, and just to kind of give advice about what was your favorite part out of all three different positions. What would you say was your favorite?
I think really my favorite part is being a promoter, and I'll tell you why. When you're a wrestler and you wrestle in front of 500 people, you can emotionally affect those people for that 10 minutes you're out there. Everything else is dependent on what everybody else did before you and after you on how the people are going to be affected. As a promoter, what I can do is I can put the matches together. I can agent the matches. I know what's going to get a guy over. I can tell them what I want to do, what the finish should be, how they should go about it. And if I do that with all 6 or 7 matches on my card, then I can affect that entire building of people that walk away. And my thing is, you have to connect with people. I mean, it isn't about talent. It's never been about talent. Talent helps, but talent is not the great equalizer. It's the same thing if you watch, I watched that musical show, The Voice. And I can predict every week, and I just did it tonight with my wife. I told her who was going to go home, and she said, "How do you know?" And I said, "Because they did not connect with the crowd. If you can't connect with people in the audience, you're not going to connect with people out in TV land. And that's the greatest thing that's missing today, is that connection to people. So as a promoter, I can put things together where these guys, every match will connect with those people out there in that crowd. And when 500 of them leave and they have a positive experience, that's good for the business.
Okay.
Well, one individual that you mentioned earlier that you had some time with down in Carolina was Ethan Carter. And I'm a TNA fan, and I think that the transformation that he's made from NXT to the character he is on TNA has been phenomenal. And in terms of why some guys don't click with a certain company and why they click with another, being a promoter, what do you think are some of the reasons why a certain talent doesn't connect, like you said, in one place, but he connects like gangbusters in another?
It's funny. I think it's the opportunity to freelance the character a little bit. You go back in the day when Vince Jr. first started taking over TV, and you look at the characters that he had wrestling. I mean, there was such a variety of characters, and those people were given, I give you an example. Two of my friends, the Bushwhackers, as the Sheep Herders, they were the most feared, hardcore, violent tag team that ever walked the face of God's green earth before ECW, and they brought him in there. And he said, listen, we want you to be kind of goofy. We want you to do this. And they looked at the dollars and cents, and they gave him an outline, and those guys got that gimmick over. And same with Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Honky Tonk Man. All those things were loosely written, and it was up to the interpretation of the character to make it come to life. That's gone at the WWE level. That does not exist. It's not going to exist again until somebody realizes that what they currently do, with everything scripted and everything told what you can do and what you can say, is not going to work. You get a guy like Heath Slater. That guy could be a tremendous talent, but they don't give him the opportunity to have a character that he's allowed to put his input, develop into. You see the way a guy goes in the ring. If he was given that opportunity, I think he could get a character over, and I think he could be very successful. Sometimes you have to go to somewhere like TNA where it's a little loosely controlled, little less stringently controlled, I should say, and a guy's allowed to freelance, and they give him bullet points, and they let him go. And I think that's the difference. That's why a guy can get released and the WWE gives up on him. He can go overseas and get over. He can get over at TNA, and, maybe Global Force will do the same thing.
What would be interesting is if the opportunity presented itself and we got to actually have you sit down with Danny Cage, with Rudy Boy Gonzalez, and do a show between the three of you. You all, and I mean this with the utmost respect, have such a interesting outlook and point of view on the wrestling business these days, and with the youngsters that want to get in there, and either they got it or they don't. It's just that simple. But you guys, I think it would be an interesting show to have the three of you sit down and just give your point of views on the wrestling business today, as it maybe has changed over the last 20 years. As you were just mentioning, of course, with Vince Jr., as he took it to a different level, but it seems as though over the last 15-plus years or so, it's kind of been staggering, kind of been dragging in the water a little bit.
Right.
Would you ever
funny,
be up for doing a show like that with the two of them on as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Danny Cage and I are best friends. Rudy and I talk all the time, but, I talked to Danny last week for about half an hour on opening up my center here, which I've leased space for and bought a ring, and open it and asking some questions about, different things. And I'm going up there and spend 3 days with him before my camp opens. I'm probably going to go to Texas and spend 3 days with Rudy. So, I have the utmost respect for these guys and what they've done in the business, what they continue to do. And so I think it'd be a phenomenal opportunity. I just got off the phone, or just got off the email a little while ago with a guy named Tracy Myers, who is the guy that's behind WrestleCade. Him and Brian Hawks do that every year, and they're running FML now, and Tracy's got a few car dealerships, and he's an astute business person and written a best-selling book, and very sharp. And we're going to do, in September, we're going to do, on the 22nd, 23rd, a 2-day symposium for wrestling promoters, because, these are guys that draw 1,000 people to a show, or 3,000 at WrestleCade. And, Mike Howell's going to be there from Omega, and they draw 1,000 to 1,500. And, we're bringing in a couple other guys who draw big houses, and we're going to sit down and have promoters come from all over the country. It's going to be open to everybody that wants to learn how to do this the right way, because we think that if we help promoters understand what makes a good promotion and how to go about building it, that it's going to help the overall landscape of the wrestling business in general. So.
I actually could throw in a different name as another person as well, make it a fatal four-way, if you will, of great minds in the wrestling business, and throw Bobby Horn in there, Sir Mo. He's another one who's very, very, he knows what he knows what he likes to see. He knows, and he's also a good friend of yours as well. That the four of you guys sit down and just talk about it, and man, that'd be a hell of a show. Let me just say. And I might have to bring you guys back again, just the four of you, and just let you go. Uncensored, unfiltered, just speak on the wrestling business. I could see I could see it now.
We did that a couple years ago. We had Bull Payne, Mike Maverick, who was jacked up in the WWE, Mike Howell, who's a key guy, one of the owners of Omega, and myself on the radio, and they let us go for an hour and a half and just talk about the wrestling business. I'm not sure how it went over with the wrestlers, but I think the fans enjoyed it.
That's all that matters.
Absolutely.
It's true.
You talked earlier about when you were younger and you would read the magazines, and that was kind of one of the ways that you would digest your wrestling. And so I want to know, just from a fan standpoint, when the first time you saw your name on the PWI 500, what was that feeling like?
Yes. I was like, because of course you think you should be on it for 2 or 3 years before you actually get on it, and it was like great. I was on there for a few years straight, and then I was off it and remade it in 2013 after a 12-year absence from the top 500. Wow. At that time, it was the longest absence of any wrestler that ever returned to the top 500. So I felt pretty good about that. I blame it on Damian Wayne because he made me wrestle him all over the country. Which easy match, a lot of travel.
Well, my final question for you will be, as far as your upcoming shows, and if fans want to keep up with you and what you're doing, these days, what's the best way to do that and to find out what shows you'll be appearing at in the future?
Well, I can't accept any more friends at Facebook. I'm at the 5,000 limit, unfortunately, with a couple, 700-800 waiting. But you can follow me at Cueball Carmichael at Facebook, and you can see everything I post. I keep it set up like that. There's Cueball Carmichael, the athlete page. I don't do a lot on that, so you're better off to follow me there, or you can get me at Cueball469 at Twitter, and I'll answer your tweets on there, or you can... I got it set up where you can follow me on Facebook and you can email me even if we're not friends. So that's probably the best place. There's also for insiders like you guys, or if you got a show, if you're a referee or you're a manager of LA, or you're in training or you're getting into business, I have a private group called Cueball's Corner Pocket. It's got about 1,000 people in there. Most of them are insiders, but we've got wrestling vets like Tracy Smothers, Axel Rotten, Bull Payne, Samu Inouye. I mean, we got a lot of guys in there. Alpha Inouye. We've got a bunch of guys in there that know what they're doing, that offer advice and comment on things and help people out. And I post a ton of stuff in there to try to give the young wrestlers a leg up, because I think knowledge is everything. And you may go to a school that teaches you how to bump, but that certainly is not the business of professional wrestling.
Interesting. Okay, we'll definitely have to pull you guys in for that little summit, if you will, the fatal four-way summit of promoters and so forth between the four of you guys. I'll have to get back with you on that one for a future show, no doubt. But Nate, did you have any final questions for Cueball?
No, I just wanted to say, as somebody here in the Tidewater area, a place that Cueball is very familiar with, we appreciate all your years down here, man. I remember seeing you with NWA Virginia and also Maryland Championship Wrestling.
Yes,
those were some good shows, brother.
They were really good. I wrestled Buddy Landell and Toad, who was a great wrestler down there, and just a bunch of really good guys in all that area, and had a lot of fun. And still, a lot of my really good friends, Preston Quinn and Damian Wayne, and a bunch of guys are still down there in the Tidewater area, and I talk to them all the time. And I've had some fusion dates, but unfortunately, every time I get a fusion date, I either get hurt or I get sick. So maybe sometime in the future.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I know that it's late where you're at over there. We definitely won't want to keep you waiting too long. We hope you feel better. I know you were saying you were a little under the weather, but I appreciate the time that you've given us tonight, Cueball, and we wish you the best. And like I said, I will be in touch in the coming months to maybe set something up with the four of you guys on the show. On behalf of Nate and myself, we wish you a very good night, sir.
All right, Nate and Felix, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, man.
Yep, God bless.
Good night. All right, bye-bye. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Cueball Carmichael, interesting man to say the least. He's the kind of guy that he didn't make it in. He wasn't in WWE, but you know what? That's okay because he's successful in just about every organization he's been in.
Yep.
There are some that don't need to make it to WWE to make it. He follows the product. He follows. I wouldn't be surprised if the opportunity ever presented himself that they ever actually maybe asked Cueball to be a trainer, maybe a guest trainer at the Performance Center. I mean, he is very well known. So it's not something that can be that's impossible, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it just goes to show you, that there's so much more to, like you said, there's so much more to wrestling than taking bumps. There's so much more to the business of pro wrestling than just the WWE. This is a guy with a long and lengthy career, both as a wrestler and as a promoter and as a trainer. And the impact that he's had on the business, you talk about a guy like Joey Mercury, who, has had a long and lengthy career. You talk about, guys like Christian York and some of the other guys that he's had an influence on. And that's what it's all about, the older guys, the veterans, giving that information back to the younger guys coming up in the business. And hopefully that brings the whole sport to a better level, and I'm really looking forward if you can get that together with Danny and Mo and the rest of those guys, because I think that would just be almost like a college course to anybody that wants to get in the wrestling business. Just listening to those guys talk for an hour.
I'm game with that. We just got to set it at a good time for everybody, because I know Cueball's on the East Coast along with you. Danny's on the East Coast. I want to say Rudy's over here on Central Standard Time, and of course me. Yep. I mean, we can work it out sometime over the summertime, I'm sure. So, anyways, that being said, it's definitely something to look forward to in the future, maybe hopefully before the end of 2015 for sure. If not, we'll look for something definitely to look forward to in 2016. But I definitely want to throw out there about next week's show. With the upcoming Wildcat show, we are actually going to have Wildcat heavyweight champion Shane Taylor on the show. Big monster man, let me tell you. He will be on the show to talk about his upcoming championship match at their very next show that they have coming up that Saturday, actually. I've heard nothing but impressive things about this young man, and I look forward to bringing him on next week. Wildcat heavyweight champion Shane Taylor next week.
Yeah, I'm just going to give you a couple quick numbers, folks. 6'1", 350. Yeah. As Jim Ross would say, that's a horse right there.
That's right. But we're going to transition over to Monday Night Raw last night. I have to say, I was impressed. I was very impressed with the show. It just kept the momentum going. You saw something new and fresh, and saw some returns, and just saw things come out of the blue. And by the end of the night, it occurred to me, the Shield is in a main event together against each other, and you threw Randy Orton into the loop. Something's going to happen at Payback. I don't know what, but something's going to happen. What was your take on Raw last night?
Yeah, I thought Raw was a better show than the Raws we've been getting lately, and I think the thing that pushed it over the edge was that crowd in Montreal. They were so good all night. And I loved my favorite parts of the show were obviously the Bret Hart coming out and introducing Sami Zayn. That was a great moment.
That was great. I got it. I did not see that coming.
No, me
Sorry,
neither.
Go ahead. You were saying.
The other part that I liked, that whole segment was good, starting with Cena and the crowd. And for whatever anybody wants to say about John Cena, I think he handles a hostile crowd better than almost anybody in the sport, because by the end of his promo, he had the crowd cheering for him.
And what I dig as well is the fact that they're embracing I think you were just saying this too, but I actually dig the idea of that they're embracing this New Day thing, and these guys, New Day, are getting out there and they're embracing their hate. They're embracing their haters.
And it's
I
funny
really
because
dig that.
I don't think the New Day was originally supposed to be a heel group, but it's one of those things where the crowd turns them heel, and it just works. Like when they were in the back, and they're like, "It's not New Day sucks, it's New Day rocks." Like I think they got so much potential, and I've always been a fan of Big E. I think he's super charismatic, and he's a good worker in the ring, and we all know how good Kofi's been for the past few years, and Xavier Woods makes a good kind of Weasley manager, so I hope they keep going with this group.
I think they will. And one thing I have to say is kind of annoying. Maybe it's just me, but I think they do this because he does it so well, and that's. Did you say Big E or did you say Xavier when you were saying? I believe you said.
Yeah, Big E has the charisma, and he I've been a big fan of his for a while, and I'm glad they're finally
his way
doing
he does
stuff.
The preacher voice. That's the kind of thing that kind of it don't fit. I don't know if they do that as a joke to him, but it just doesn't fit.
Yeah, I don't know why they kept trying to force him into that mold where that was how he talked, because if you see him do interviews or you read what he says on Twitter, like, he's a funny guy, he's a smart guy, and you don't have to kind of pigeonhole him into this one role.
Yeah. Well, see, that kind of goes back to our discussion that we had a few months ago, where it seems as though they put the Mexican wrestlers as either the luchadors or in the masks, or they're gangsters, they're gangbanger wrestlers, or if you put them and they're black wrestlers, they're either anti-whitey, kill whitey, or they're rapping or they're gospel. It's like it's let them be themselves. Some people say, okay, well, he's not black, but he is. If you think about it, Rock is part black, part Samoan.
Yep.
You go out there and you try to make him something he wasn't, then obviously that didn't work. You let him go out there and let him be himself and let him figure out his character. Look what you got. You got a freaking worldwide superhero, practically.
Exactly. And part of the problem is, I do a show with Brian Mann he used to write for the WWE. And part of the problem is there's a lot of people in that company that see race as a gimmick, which is funny. It's like, you can't have two black guys fighting. That's a gimmick match. Or, the Latino guy, that's a gimmick already. But it's like, no, there's so many different characters that these guys are capable of portraying. And somebody like Xavier Woods, who legitimately is smart enough to earn a PhD, is somebody like Kofi. If you look at the Kofi stuff on the independent scene, he can cut a good promo. And so I hope they give these guys an opportunity. I hope they, start to give some of the luchadors an opportunity. I hope they give Kenta, Hideo Itami, a chance to shine down in NXT. But, the track record is not that great. But I'm hoping that with Triple H starting to get more control, that we'll see more diversity, in terms of storylines and the characters.
Well, I think at this point, throughout each generation, I don't see if that ever changing. As far as what I was saying, as far as what we were just saying, I just don't see that type of thing changing. It just works for them, and I guess it works for everybody else too. But some people notice these little things, and some people don't. Right.
Well, the funny thing is, the big news from TNA over the last week was Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins taking over their creative, and one of the things he talked about was he wants to do different stories with minorities and with women and with different sexualities, and so I'm like, I applaud him for trying to change things, but like you said, wrestling has been around for as long as people have been around, and I don't know if one guy is going to be able to change everything.
I just got word on something. I just want to throw it out there. Be prepared, because we will bring another family member from a wrestling dynasty. I won't say which one. Coming in June. I just got the word today, And I'm going to tell you more about it, Nate, after we get off the air here. But be prepared, folks. We have another man from a wrestling dynasty coming to the show in June. Stay tuned for that. But going back to this, what do you think about the inclusion of Dean Ambrose into this championship match? Good idea or curveball out of left field?
I think it's a good idea, but here's the thing, Felix. Like, I'm excited for it, but I think, like, the cynical fan in me thinks that the only reason they put him in there was because they didn't want to pin Orton or Reigns, so Rollins was going to end up beating Ambrose.
You think so?
Because if you look
I'm thinking that one of the two members of the Shield are going to turn and help Seth Rollins win. I actually think that they're going to go and make Ambrose heel. I really do, because they're investing too much in Reigns as a good guy right now.
So then,
especially after that documentary on the WWE Network. Come on now.
Right. So then you're thinking that after this we get maybe Orton. Where does Orton go then? Does Orton feud to help Roman Reigns against those two?
As far as Orton goes, I just can't see him as a champion right now.
No.
It's not his time. Not saying it's 12 times. I mean, cool, but they're really pushing these young guys in the Shield. They're really high on these Shield guys in the main event, and I really think that they're going to put Dean into the Authority, and it could mean that maybe he will be feuding with Randy for a little bit, Dean and Randy.
Okay.
And Seth will come out of the picture and go on to defend it against the next person, which could very well be Kane. You know, as he prepares for Brock Lesnar's return. I think they're expecting him to come back in July, if I'm not mistaken. But and for some reason, I think it's going to go a lot to what Kane said in that promo with the two of them, that Seth was a champion because of them making him a champion. That they could have very well put the title on Dean Ambrose. Could he be the next poster boy for the Authority? Yeah, anything's possible. They like to try to keep it unpredictable to a point, even though these days nothing is unpredictable. But an interesting twist. And I got to throw in there another interesting twist. Somebody I thought I would never see come back because I just didn't know if it would ever happen is Tamina.
Yeah.
Tamina makes her return, and definitely an impressive one.
I really like that. I thought that at first I wasn't liking the Naomi heel turn just because it didn't make sense. But
not right at first. No.
Yeah, because it just seemed like the only reason they made her a heel was because they were in England and they had her turn on Paige. So then you had the Bellas, who like the Bellas. We talk about it every week, Felix. The Bellas don't make very good baby faces.
That's why they keep flip-flopping.
But I really like this.
Now they're good guys. Now they're good girls again, I guess.
Yeah, and then and they're really not even good because they did anything. The only reason they're good is because Naomi turned on them. But I like Naomi and Tamina together, and I like that they're tying it in with the family. So I'm really excited to see what that pairing can do.
I think it will definitely. It's something different, and rather than surrounded around the poster girls that they seem to like to do it, and I keep saying, and it's like I told Austin a few weeks ago, the only reason that these girls are getting everything that they've got has nothing to do with their looks, their talent, nothing. It really has only anything to do with the fact that they've got they're dating John Cena and married to Daniel Bryan, two of their biggest stars. Come on now, if you can't figure that, then God help you. You know. I'm sorry, going back to the days of an Alundra Blaze, of a Bertha Faye, Ronda Singh was a hell of a wrestler. It doesn't matter how big she was. Bull Nakano, that woman scared me to death, but she could wrestle, let me tell you. And these Japanese wrestling women, the women out there, man, the women in Japan would tear these girls, these divas, apart. I'm just waiting for the day, if it'll ever happen, that all of a sudden you have the Bellas out there celebrating, and you hear the sadistic laugh of Karma coming back for revenge, and takes those two apart once and for all.
Maybe.
Remember, those two were giving her hell saying she's too big to be pregnant, blah, blah, blah,
yep.
blah, blah, and, whatever.
Yeah, that could happen. But she's got her hands full right now with the Dollhouse over on TNA.
I've been hearing good things about her, and I'm hoping that she doesn't retire after TNA goes, because I know that Karma's a bit older now. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean she couldn't have at least one successful run in WWE. Her run in WWE was just marred with it was just horrible. It was horrible. And the build-up was great,
yep.
and then sidelined, and then done. Shame. It's a shame. It could definitely be better than that, but don't get me wrong. I became a fan of hers in TNA when she was Kong and had Raisha Saeed with her. Good stuff. Good stuff. But we got to talk about Payback coming up and the changes that have been going on. First of all, let me toss you a curveball here real quick. What the hell was up with Stardust and the Spiders? I was looking at that and I'm scratching my head. I'm like, what in the hell? Is this Halloween?
Yeah.
Not yet? I don't know.
Yeah.
That
I don't know what's going on with Stardust.
What do you think about the girls, though? Do you think the Eden Styles and JoJo been doing good as ring announcers now that Lillian's kind of out of action right now?
They've been doing all right. They've been doing a solid job. I think Eden's probably a little bit further along than JoJo at this point.
Yeah.
But I think they've got, because JoJo's still pretty young. I think she's, 20, 21?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
She's really young, so she's got time to grow and get better at. But, even on that point, I got to say that I've been liking the job that Renee has been doing lately.
Renee's another one. Yeah.
She's going to be a big star for that company. I think if she stays, because she's gotten offers from places like ESPN and Fox Sports. So if she stays with the company, I think she could be a big asset for them down the line.
I don't like that she cut her hair. Maybe that's just me. The shorter hair just doesn't work for me. But she's incredible. She really is.
Yes.
And, much to the dismay of Josh Matthews, although I was a fan of that young man as well, out with the old, in with the new.
Yep.
He is doing good things with TNA, I guess, and Taz got booted afterwards, and I don't know. That's another story. But, Renee Young definitely doing great things. And what I find funny, all those years ago when WWE was kind of looked down upon as that place, now you look at guys like the Coach, Todd Grisham, the guys that come in there and worked for WWE for a number of years and years and years. Renee Young, she just comes in and now everybody's wanting to pull them away because they're just that good. Coach was amazing. He sucked as a wrestler, but he was amazing.
Yeah, and if you listen to him on ESPN or listen to his radio show, he's really, really good.
Yeah, he is. It just amazes me now, just all these years later, that, they worked for WWE. We got to get them. They are so good on TV. And now you think about it, it had to been 15, 16 years ago. That place? Why do we want that kind of riffraff on our show?
Right.
Well, whatever. But I got to ask, as far as TNA goes, give me an update on how they've been doing, because I haven't been keeping up since they transferred over from Spike. How they've been doing, in your opinion?
The numbers are pretty good. It's less than what they were on Spike, just because the channel is harder to get than Spike was. The shows have been okay. I think one of the problems that they're still having is they're rushing too many stories, and the big feuds right now, you've got Kurt Angle, who is the champion, and he's taking on Eric Young, and they've already had 4 or 5 matches within the span of a month and a half. And it's you guys can let this build for a minute, let it simmer for a minute. But the other big thing on TNA, like I was talking about when we were talking with Cueball, is just how good EC3 is. I think I could make the claim WWE, TNA, ROH, Lucha Underground, there's a lot of great workers out there, but I would say over the past year and a half, 2 years, nobody has improved as much as Ethan Carter has, and I'm looking forward to seeing if they actually pull the trigger and give him a championship run.
That would be an interesting idea, and the way they were going with him, after he defeated Sting, took out Kurt Angle, who else did he take out? That was like a legend in there. I think he took out Bubba. I want to say Bubba.
Yep, he took out Bully Ray, he took out Sting, and he took out Angle.
Yeah, he took, and he was like in such a momentum. He had such momentum going through the year that no doubt I was thinking they were going to close it out with him winning the world title, because they gave him such a great push, and now it's like he's putting along, and I haven't heard nothing about him. I mean, he made it up. He was at the Omega show, but I mean, that's not neither here nor there. I'm just saying, in this case, if they're going to do something with this guy, now's the time.
Well, the story they got him in right now is really funny because he's running for president, quote unquote, and so every week he comes out and he's doing these big speeches, which is like he's really good on the mic, and they've got him working with Anderson right now. So hopefully they'll do the smart thing, have him beat Anderson, and then the next step is we get EC3 versus Kurt going into Slammiversary, which they finally announced this week. Is actually going to be happening on pay-per-view in June, I believe.
Okay. I'm going to have to check that out.
So I'm hoping that's the main event, and we see EC3 win the title at Slammiversary.
Do you think, I know it's a question that gets asked quite a bit about him a lot. Kurt Angle's nearly 50 years old. He's beat up.
Yep.
He's still got a lot of steam in him for a man his age and as beaten up as he is. Could he be taken seriously and allowed to have one actual run left in WWE? Part-timer, of course, like Jericho, like Undertaker, like Lesnar, even though Lesnar ain't a damn legend, but that's another story. Could he be given that actual run? Honestly, with the opportunity, and it surprises me because Angle's credibility is better than most. And the fact that they didn't give him an opportunity, even a call, even a meet or nothing, when his contract was up with TNA, that he just continued on and just re-signed for another year with them, and WWE just kind of didn't care. The opportunities are endless of what they can do with Kurt. If he did one more run with him and have maybe even on a Sting run, Sting type of deal that he doesn't have to make all that many appearances, keep his appearances special, and make them mean something. Yeah, Angle's up to that level where he can be done. He can be done that way.
Yeah, I think the Sting role would be perfect for him because I don't think that they would want to have him be a regular character, but I think having him do like Sting did and build up to one big match at WrestleMania, I think that'd be something cool and a good way for Kurt to go out and give him the Legends deal where he does the video game and the Hall of Fame and all that cool stuff.
Absolutely. With the way things are going right now for Dallas next year, it's almost certain that I will be there. And if this is going to happen and they do plan it the way it's going to happen with Taker and Sting, I don't see any better way for those two to go out than go out on top and have one hell of a last hurrah. And I'm not sure if they'll give them both the chance for Hall of Fame, but it'd be perfect. I mean, they both worked in Dallas. They both started in, I don't know if they started, but they both worked in Texas at one point or another. But that's another story. We'll get to that when WrestleMania gets closer. But I find myself watching the Hall of Fame of this year quite a lot these days. I don't know why, but the speeches just kind of hit me. With the exception of the Zbyszko one, which I have to agree with Lanny Poffo. Zbyszko's speech, God bless him, but it sucked. It really was he really went off the key and just rambled through that entire speech.
Yeah, and I think the problem with Larry's speech was like he apparently
he took us to Larry
memorizing it. Yeah, he spent all day working on the speech, but then he didn't have any notes. He didn't have, like, Alundra had her iPad with her. He didn't have any cue cards, and it's like, Larry, you can't just get up there and just freestyle, brother.
He really thought he could, but and look at Fujinami, Tatsumi Fujinami. He couldn't speak a lot well of English, but he kept it short and sweet. Simple as that. Same thing with Mil Mascaras a few years ago. He didn't babble on and 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 on about nothing. He kept it short and sweet. Just saying. I found Medusa's speech a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I found Rikishi's was a lot of fun, but I think it kind of left a sour taste in the mouth of two people that were not mentioned on there, and that being Brian Christopher and Scott Taylor, who had some things to say about it. That's another story. I enjoyed the Bushwhackers so much, and I'm just so glad that Luke came on the show that Tuesday before, and just getting to see how, Butch for the first time, and God, it had been like almost 20 years for me to see. I hadn't seen him on TV in years, And, he was having so much fun. I think that was no doubt the most enjoyable speech of the night as far as entertainment goes. But I think the ones that I don't know, in your opinion, of course, the ones that tugged at your heart, obviously, were the ones of Randy Savage, the ones, of course, for Connor.
The Connor the Crusher.
And, yeah. Those two are really the only ones that stuck out as the ones that kind of tugged at your heart. Medusa's was entertaining and funny because she had a mouth like a sailor.
Yes.
And she literally said, "Let's kick this shit up now," or something like that. And I'm like, I don't think they like that.
You could tell she had been holding on to that pain from the way people responded to her putting the title in the trash can for a long time, and it was finally her chance to just kind of take a deep breath and let it all out and put it to bed.
Yeah, no doubt. And, of course, Arnold, I don't know. I still think that whole thing with Triple H coming out like that's just a way to cross-promote his movie coming out, and it looks silly as hell. That wasn't really all that cool to me. I've seen better. Come on. I don't know. That's another story we'll get into another discussion at another time because that Sting loss just didn't sit well with me, and I know it didn't sit well with a lot of people. But gotta ask, as far as your show coming up on Wednesday, man, with Marcus, what you guys got planned? Is he coming back? Has he come back? I mean, what you guys got to talk about?
Yeah, the Kings of Sport, which Brother Felix has been a guest on in the past, is we got an all-new show coming out this week. Marcus has returned from Vegas, where he was out covering the fight of the century, Mayweather and Pacquiao. So we'll talk about the box.
Sorry, I had to clear my throat there for a second.
Yeah, we'll talk about the big fight, and we'll talk about the NFL draft that happened last week, as well as the NBA playoffs. And you can check that out on iTunes, on Stitcher, and you can follow us on Twitter, KOS_POD, CosPod on Twitter.
Nice deal. I got to throw out a little bit a side note. Obviously, with the departure of Austin James from the show, I am putting it out there right now on the airwaves that I am in search of a new graphic designer. Right now, Austin is he's no longer with the show, so therefore he was the one responsible for doing a lot of the artwork and so forth. So I don't have a graphic artist at the moment, and I will be needing one. And if you're interested, please shoot me an email at pipebombRadioshow@hotmail.com, or you can message the page on Facebook. Message the Facebook page of Pipebomb Radio, and we'll talk about it because I am desperately needing a graphic designer. Right now, our boy Elio 2Ls Canella's handling it, and we can't thank him enough for stepping up and doing it. But yeah, if you're a graphic designer, let me know. Let me know what you can do, man. All right, going back to our regularly scheduled programming here. As far as everything goes, and as far as Thursday show, they've got, and they're doing Independent Wrestling Month, and they want to bring in legends it doesn't necessarily have to be WWE legends, but wrestling legends who have been trainers who can offer advice to the young and upcoming stars who want to get into the wrestling business or are in it and are aspiring to do more, if you will, doing their on-air, what do you call those? I just lost my train of thought. Where they're the on-air seminars. There you go.
Yes.
Where they offer the advice to the youngsters. They've done this before, and it's gotten over really well. And, again, stay tuned because we are definitely going to be looking for more legends to come on the show this month on Thursday night to help these young up-and-comers and give them some advice. If you know anybody, have them message the Men on a Mission fan page, Oscar, Mo, and Dreamy Mimi, all answer all messages on that page. I run it with them, but they basically answer everything, as well as their Twitter, @mom_Oscar. Send them a tweet if you're interested in coming on the show, and we'll take it from there. As far as next week goes, again, Wildcat Heavyweight Champion Shane Taylor coming to the show to talk about his upcoming title defense, and a lot more than that. And, of course, with our social media, we are out there everywhere you can think of. We actually had to cut back on Daily Motion for unfortunate reasons, but we still have some shows that are uploaded there. Everything else, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes. If you don't find us out there, you're lying. I still have to say that we're practically everywhere you can think of. There's just no way. We're even on Blog Talk. But that said, I think we've covered about everything else.
Real quick, Felix.
Go ahead, man.
It just popped into my head when you were talking about the Hall of Fame. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention last week the passing of Vern Gagne.
Oh, good. Yes, please. That was my mistake, and I told you, and you told me we were going to talk about this. Let's spend a few minutes and talk about this for a second. The man who, without a shadow of a doubt, had entertained the wrestling world for a half a century, not only as a wrestler, not only as an on-air character, but also as a trainer, training some of the biggest names in the world of professional wrestling. Ric Flair said his career, he owes Vern his entire career. We lost a great one. Vern Gagne passed away last week at the age of 89. If I'm not mistaken, it was 89, right?
Yes. That's correct.
What's your thoughts on Vern?
I mean, obviously a great legendary wrestler. He's a little bit before our time, but thanks to DVD and YouTube and things like the WWE Network, you can go back and look at how great he was. And you mentioned his success as a trainer. Like, when the two names at the top of the list of people you trained are Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat, you're a hell of a trainer.
Yeah.
This is somebody that the wrestlers regarded as a legit tough man. He was an amateur wrestler. He was on the Olympic team back in the day, and he was in he's in the WWE Hall of Fame, WCW's Hall of Fame, the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. So he's somebody that is well respected, and people that don't even watch wrestling anymore are talking about this. This past week we've seen the outpouring of memories and love and respect for Mr. Gagne. So I hope that his family was able to at least see how much he meant to the wrestling world and the world in general. And there won't be another one like him coming around the pike anytime soon.
No, not at all. It's the same impact. I really believe it's the same impact it was when the world lost Fritz von Erich.
Yes.
Or a guy, or even a Vince McMahon Sr. I'll put those three at the same level because Vince Sr. was so respected, so respected. Vern extremely respected, loved, throughout the world, but most notably in his home state of Minnesota. There isn't anybody that had anything that they didn't have to say about him. Obviously some had bad things, but you know what? It was all meant, with the utmost respect. I honestly think so. But
and when you talk about those three guys, I think that it's almost like the closing of a chapter, because you talk about with Vince Sr. with the WWF, Fritz von Erich with World Class, and then, of course, Vern Gagne with the AWA. Those are outside of the NWA. Those are the three biggest territories back then, and so it's a piece of history that is lost. A man that is well respected, and you can almost call him the original Kurt Angle. Like, he was the original guy that helped bring legitimacy to pro wrestling. So he will be missed, and rest in peace.
Amen to that. And I think they did a nice little video for him on WWE.com. And I shared it around on a lot of the pages that I have, most notably my Bobby the Brain Heenan page, which I am so proud to say that I've mentioned that to Mr. and Mrs. Heenan that there is a page in honor of Bobby's great wrestling history, wrestling career in wrestling history. And he worked with Vern for a number of years. Vern I mean, if you think about it, Vern basically prepped a lot of the guys before they went to WWE. Not on purpose. It just kind of, well, I guess it was kind of.
Yeah.
Well, either way you look at it, Vince snagged them up because he's seen the impact that they were making in Vern's company.
Hogan,
guys
Mr.
like a Bobby
Perfect.
Heenan, guys like a Gene Okerlund, Hogan, Andre. The list, this endless list.
Mr. Perfect.
Yeah. Nick Bonquinkle at one point, I believe, worked in WWE too, didn't he?
Yep.
But he also worked for WCW as well. That's another story.
Like Vern Gagne trained the Iron Sheik. Come on, man.
Sheiky baby. Yeah.
Sheiky baby. Like that's how legendary this guy is, and we just talked to Cueball Carmichael and talked about how the training methods have passed from changed over the years, and Vern was definitely an old school trainer that he would weed out the guys that weren't there to be serious about this business. Very true. They were going to take until you couldn't give no more. Even though you could even throw in a Killer Kowalski, Yeah.
These guys were going to train you until you dropped. Hiro Matsuda. They didn't. They kept it very private. Either you were going to make it, or they were going to break you, and then you were going to walk away with your tail between your legs. It was no joke back then. That's why I said some people just don't realize how much you really have to value your history, the guys that came before you. These guys aren't old and just preaching some riff-raff nonsense. These guys actually know what they're talking about. They've been through it. They know it. You might want to listen. So I said, we can get that Fatal 4-Way on-air conversation going. I suggest those young and up-and-comers bring a notepad and a pencil. Because homework is, class is in session.
Yep.
But on that side note, thank you for reminding me on that, Nate. But we're going to go ahead and call it a close on that note. Sending our best wishes to the Gagne family. And, of course, make sure you guys tune in next week, of course, and Thursdays on that. Of course, let's not forget, we got to mention Wednesday's show. Nate's show's coming up Wednesday night. We got Not Your Mama's Radio Show Thursday, and then back again next Tuesday night. On behalf of Nate, myself, Felix, for Pipebomb Radio, saying keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. Good night, everybody. Good night, Nate.
All right.